Breaking. Just in, Russia's most critical supply bridge has been turned into a graveyard of steel and fire. In one single night, what Moscow once called the unbreakable artery of victory became a burning line of wreckage. Flames tore through the dark sky as more than 500 Russian armored vehicles, tanks, fuel trucks, missile carriers rolled directly into Ukraine's deadliest trap yet. The explosion that followed didn't just destroy a bridge. It tore open the illusion that Russia still controlled its own war. Picture it. Hundreds of headlights crawling across a long steel bridge over the river. Russian soldiers relaxed, confident, certain the route had been cleared. Then silence breaks. A flash. The ground shakes. In the next instant, everything vanishes in smoke. Drone footage released hours later shows the impossible, the entire convoy swallowed by fire as if the river itself had turned against them. The bridge collapses in the center. Vehicles slide into the water, and secondary explosions erupt from fuel trucks, igniting one after another like dominoes of death. The night sky becomes a living inferno visible for miles. According to initial reports from Ukrainian sources, the strike had been planned for weeks, maybe months. It wasn't random, it was precise. Ukrainian intelligence had monitored that route since Russian logistics began rerouting supplies after the collapse of their southern corridor. They waited, watching, counting every crossing, until the moment came when Moscow decided to push through nearly all of its remaining armored transport for one massive resupply. That's when Ukraine's trap snapped shut. Analysts now say the operation involved not just drones or artillery, but a combination of satellite tracking, US Navy surveillance data, and long-range precision missiles coordinated in near real time. The strike hit exactly as the heaviest Russian vehicles reached the midpoint, the weakest structural section of the bridge. The result was catastrophic. Entire battalions vanished before they could even reach the other side. Witnesses in nearby villages described the shockwave like an earthquake. Windows shattered 20 kilometers away. The river was glowing red, one local said. We saw the bridge collapse, and the sky stayed bright like day for almost an hour. Russian emergency channels flooded with panic, units screaming for evacuation, commanders shouting over static, but no response ever came. The comms went silent. Moscow's Ministry of Defense didn't release a statement until morning, and even then, they called it merely a logistical incident. But everyone already knew the truth. This wasn't an accident, it was a message. Ukraine had just crippled one of Russia's final supply arteries connecting the front to its rear command bases. The so-called Northern Bridge, a vital link carrying ammunition, food and fuel into occupied zones, is now nothing more than twisted steel and blackened rubble. Satellite images show dozens of burned-out hulks dotting the riverbanks, the wreckage stretching nearly a mile. A convoy that was supposed to reinforce the Russian lines in the east has instead been wiped off the map. In Kyiv, officials called it a turning point, but they refused to give details about the weapons used or who provided targeting data. Yet, sources close to the operation claim that advanced US Navy reconnaissance systems were key, specifically maritime satellites capable of detecting heat signatures across the entire region. Those signals reportedly helped identify when the bridge was most heavily loaded. And when the time came, Ukraine's long-range strike teams unleashed everything they had. Meanwhile, inside Russia, panic spread faster than the flames themselves. Telegram channels exploded, with messages from soldiers' families begging for news. Mothers from Tula, Kursk and Rostov posted desperate pleas. My son was in that convoy, please tell me if he's alive. The Kremlin's response was chilling silence. State media avoided the story entirely for 12 hours, then quietly aired a short segment blaming structural failure caused by poor engineering. But the images online told another story, hundreds of vehicles, all Russian, all destroyed. What's more, the loss of the bridge has triggered a logistical nightmare. Without that crossing, the nearest supply route lies almost 150 kilometers away, through terrain now under Ukrainian artillery control. For Moscow, that means slower reinforcements, longer fuel lines, and an open door for Ukrainian counterattacks. Commanders reportedly ordered temporary pontoon bridges, but strong river currents and constant drone surveillance make construction nearly impossible. This is not just a tactical setback. It's a collapse in confidence. Russian troops on the ground are already reporting shortages of food and fuel. Some are stranded on isolated positions, unable to retreat or advance. We are abandoned, one intercepted message reads. They told us help was coming, but the bridge is gone. Everything is gone. In Kyiv, the mood is electrified. Crowds gathered outside government buildings, waving flags, chanting as news of the operation spread. This is what patience brings, said one Ukrainian soldier. We watched them move for days. We waited until they were all in one place. And then we struck. The precision, the timing, The scale it all points to months of planning, a level of coordination that stunned even Western analysts. Some are calling it the most significant ambush since the beginning of the war. But perhaps the most shocking detail isn't the destruction itself, it's the fact that Russia walked straight into it. How could Moscow's military intelligence not see it coming? Why was such a massive convoy sent over a single crossing point, especially after repeated warnings from within their own ranks about Ukraine's growing surveillance capabilities? Those are the questions now echoing through Russian military circles. Generals are reportedly furious, blaming each other for the decision. And inside the Kremlin, the panic is palpable. Anonymous sources claim that President Putin was briefed at dawn and that his reaction was explosive. Still, there's more to this story. Because behind this devastating strike lies something even deeper. A network of cooperation and intelligence sharing that may now change the balance of power on the battlefield. So what exactly happened behind the scenes? How did Ukraine manage to synchronize such a flawless ambush under Russia's nose? And what role did the US Navy actually play in this operation that turned 500 armored vehicles into burning metal? Stay with me, because the answers might reveal not just a single attack, but the beginning of Russia's greatest logistical disaster yet. It all started with silence, weeks of it. No shelling, no drone footage, no major troop movements. To the Russians, it felt like calm. To the Ukrainians, it was the sound of a trap tightening. Deep beneath that quiet, Kyiv's intelligence teams were orchestrating one of the most complex ambushes of the entire war. They knew that Russia was desperate to rebuild its collapsed supply lines after losing 2 major bridges in the south. They also knew Moscow had only one route left, capable of carrying heavy armor and fuel trucks in large numbers. The Northern Bridge, a steel giant, stretching across the Dnipro River. For months, reconnaissance drones buzzed high above it, invisible to radar. Ukrainian spotters hid in nearby forests, mapping every convoy that crossed. They counted trucks, timed movements, analyzed schedules. The bridge became a living target under constant watch. But the plan wasn't just to hit it, it was to time the strike so perfectly that it would crush not just the structure, but an entire logistics operation in one blow. According to multiple military insiders, the operation was codenamed Silent Current. It involved cooperation between Ukraine's defense intelligence, the country's elite SBU strike division, and reportedly, data relayed by US Navy reconnaissance satellites orbiting above the Black Sea. These satellites, capable of reading thermal signatures from thousands of kilometers away, had been tracking unusual concentrations of Russian vehicles moving toward the bridge for days. The signals were transmitted in real time to a secure command post near Dnipro city, where Ukrainian officers sat in total darkness, eyes fixed on glowing screens showing every movement along the river. Then, late in the evening, the final confirmation came: more than 500 Russian vehicles lined up for crossing. Everything from fuel tankers to missile trucks, armored personnel carriers to mobile command units. A full supply armada heading straight into the open. The order went out. Ukrainian artillery units moved into hidden positions. Long-range missile crews loaded Storm Shadow and Neptune launchers. Dozens of drones, including US, supplied MQ-9 Reapers, operating in surveillance mode, took to the air, hovering just outside Russian radar range. The tension was unbearable. Every commander knew that one mistake could ruin the entire plan. And then came the call. They're halfway across. In less than 2 minutes, the night sky erupted. The first wave hit the midpoint of the bridge, right where the convoy was most tightly packed. The explosion didn't just destroy the road, it vaporized the first 30 vehicles instantly, cutting the column in 2. The second wave struck moments later, targeting the fuel trucks in the rear. Fire cascaded forward, igniting ammunition crates, missiles, even fuel tanks on the tanks themselves. Within seconds, the bridge became a rolling inferno. Drone footage captured the impossible. Hundreds of Russian soldiers scrambling, some leaping into the freezing river, others trapped in burning vehicles. The heat was so intense it warped the steel structure, bending it like soft plastic. Ukrainian artillery didn't stop shells, continued to rain down on both ends of the bridge to block rescue efforts. Every exit became a death zone. By dawn, it was over. The entire convoy, 500 vehicles, either destroyed, burned, or submerged. The bridge was severed in the middle. Its supports collapsed into the current below. The river carried away what was left: black oil slicks, twisted metal, fragments of uniforms. Within hours, satellite images confirmed the devastation. US Navy analysts verified thermal signatures consistent with over 1,200 detonations, meaning nearly every vehicle carried explosive or fuel materials that ignited during the strike. It was, as one Pentagon official later described, An engineered apocalypse for Russian logistics. But behind this brutal success lay months of frustration and preparation. Ukrainian engineers had tried and failed to take out that bridge several times before. Its structure was reinforced, covered by anti-drone jammers, and surrounded by Russian air defense units. Nothing worked. Until now. What changed? Western coordination. Reports indicate that the US Navy's involvement wasn't direct combat support but real-time intelligence. The Americans had positioned a reconnaissance ship in the Black Sea, using advanced radar mapping to monitor Russian logistic patterns. That data was quietly shared with Kiev through secure NATO channels. Combined with signals intercepted from Russian field communications, Ukraine built a full picture of when the convoy would depart, how long it would take to reach the bridge, and which section would hold the greatest weight. It was the perfect storm, and Russia never saw it coming. When the bridge fell, it didn't just cripple one supply line, it paralyzed an entire front. The 8th and 20th Combined Arms Armies, responsible for defending eastern sectors, suddenly lost access to 70% of their ammunition flow. Tanks stalled. Artillery silenced. Even rations ran dry. Russian soldiers began recording videos begging for supplies, complaining that command had abandoned them. Some called it another Kherson, referring to the disastrous retreat months earlier. Inside the Kremlin, the fallout was immediate. Generals scrambled to explain the loss. Some blamed sabotage. Others accused each other of leaking coordinates. The FSB reportedly opened an internal investigation into whether someone inside the Ministry of Defense had shared logistics data with Ukrainian intelligence. But no one could explain one thing: why such a massive convoy was ordered to move at night without air cover, across a single vulnerable crossing point. As panic grew, local Russian officials tried to contain the narrative. State TV showed footage of repair crews working on what they claimed was minor damage. But independent sources proved the footage was old. In reality, the bridge was gone, half submerged, half hanging in twisted pieces over the river. Meanwhile, the reaction in Ukraine was euphoric. Streets in Kyiv lit up with car horns and cheers. People gathered around screens replaying drone footage of the explosion, waving flags and chanting, "Slava Ukraini." For them, this wasn't just another strike, it was revenge for months of suffering under Russian bombardment. It was proof that patience, strategy, and precision could destroy brute force. Western analysts compared the strike to the Dnipro crossings during World War II, where timing and deception changed the course of entire campaigns. This was a masterpiece of coordination, said one NATO strategist. They didn't just hit a bridge, they shattered Russia's illusion of control. But what's most striking is how Moscow's silence deepened the impact. For 2 full days, Russian citizens were left in the dark. No official casualty count, no acknowledgement of the loss. Only whispers on social media and leaked soldier messages describing the horror. "We were burning. The bridge disappeared under us. Command is gone." And still, even after this catastrophic blow, Russia hasn't found a way to respond. Its engineers face impossible odds rebuilding in the middle of an active war zone. Its troops are trapped with dwindling resources. Its commanders are under investigation. And its propaganda machine, for once, has no story big enough to hide the truth. This was not just another Ukrainian strike. This was the unraveling of Russia's logistical backbone, the lifeline that kept its invasion alive. But the story doesn't end here. Because what happened after the bridge fell sent shockwaves all the way to Moscow and far beyond. The collapse triggered a chain reaction that rattled the Kremlin, forced desperate measures, and drew an unexpected response from NATO and the United States. And according to new intelligence, the situation is spiraling faster than anyone expected. Because the real disaster for Russia wasn't just losing the bridge, it was what came next. And now, the question everyone's asking: is this the final breaking point for Russia? Or will the Kremlin risk everything to strike back? Because after what we've just witnessed, one thing is crystal clear. This war is entering a phase no one is ready for. If you think this was the end, think again. The next chapter is already unfolding, and it could change everything on the battlefield. So don't look away. Make sure you're subscribed with the bell on so you don't miss what happens next. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Do you think Moscow can recover from this? Or is this the moment Russia's war machine finally collapses? Hit that like button if you're standing with Ukraine. Share this video so the world sees the truth. And stay tuned, because what's coming next will shock everyone.